I feel like since my network has increased so much just within the past year, I'm definitely more selective now on what I choose to post, and especially when it comes to my personal life. Like, I used to post a lot more about my kids and where we were, what we were doing, but now, I have all of these people I'm connected with in other countries, and I've never met them before. I probably never will.
I've had people come to me for sponsorships, and I just tell them, like, I'm not comfortable with that right now, because I feel like it changes the message for me, like, personally. Like, I just want to be myself. I don't want there to be any expectations associated with what I'm doing. Don't be intimidated by anybody, because we're all human. We've all been there. But I would just sit back and watch and find those people in your life on social media that you think that you could connect with and that you can trust.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists, episode number 330. I am your host, Andrew Johnston, and thank you for listening. So today's group discussion should prove, I think, interesting for many of you. I was joined by Sarah Lawrence, Tameka Lee, and Bethany Montoya, and we talk about social media. My own personal journey with it has been interesting. I feel like anymore I've really stepped away from it. I used to post a lot about travel pictures. I used to post like family pictures and things like that. I was involved in a lot of the dental groups as well. But now I find myself taking pictures, never posting them, and then just lurking in all the groups rather than participating. And so it's kind of a bittersweet thing, though, because on the one hand, we just celebrated Easter. And so there's nothing like that Facebook memory that comes through every Easter. When my oldest son, Zach, he was doing his very first Easter egg hunt in Yakima. And we see it and we love it and we just get all emotional about it. But that was almost 15 years ago. And so now I'm thinking, well, in 15 more years, because I'm not posting now, I'm not going to have any of those newer pictures coming up in that Facebook memory. And that makes me a little bit sad. But on the other hand, over the last several years, I've added so many dental people to my Facebook account that it's hard to let everyone into my personal space, my personal life. So these are some of the things that we talk about on the episode today. So I think you're going to like it. Next week, we have an episode with Dr. Ellie Campbell about COVID. And I know that hearing that topic just brings like exhaustion to your mind. I know that we're all done with COVID, but the discussion about COVID, the way that Dr. Campbell brings it up, is actually very interesting. It's a little bit different. And we talk about long COVID. And I'm really happy that we learned about it. So yeah, I'm very sure that you're going to enjoy that one as well. There's a lot of takeaways for our patients and what things we need to be looking out for. It's very applicable to our everyday lives as hygienists. So it's definitely worth a listen. But make sure you're hitting that subscribe button so you don't miss out on it. Last Friday, we released an episode where we talked about a recent trip that we took to the Philippines. If you didn't hear that, please go back and give it a listen. One, I apologize that my mic wasn't plugged in all the way, and so I sound like I'm underwater a little bit. But it was really a great trip, and I wanted to share that with you so you get to hear about our experiences there. If you remember, I'd actually spent some time in the Philippines back when I was, early 20s, and this is the first time I've been able to go back. And I was able to bring Brittany and her husband with us, and my wife was there for the first time. And so you'll hear a little bit about their experiences, what they felt and saw and heard while they were there in the Philippines as well. It's a whole different experience going there compared to some of the other countries that I've been to. It is a little bit of a longer episode, so give yourself plenty of car rides, I guess, to be able to listen to it and get through it all. But we talked about I don't know if you guys know what balut is, but we talked about eating balut and jeepney rides, riding the tricycles, going to one of the islands called El Nido in Palawan. It was just I think actually now that I think about it, it was really food centric. So if you like different foods and kind of descriptions of the food, then you might enjoy this one. But the big plan was, we are going to start a mission trip at some point going to the Philippines. And I would love to take you all there with me if you're interested. There's beautiful beaches, great food. We'll have lots of fun. And I want to start a sustainable mission trip model. And the goal is going to be about doing some research while we're there, looking at the different, the causation of disease there and seeing if we can prevent it. And so I want to do charts. I want to do, tracking of different individuals using the school systems and seeing how we can partner together to have, brushing stations and things like that. I think particularly for the Philippines, nutritional counseling is going to be very important. And, I want to incorporate all of that into this one type of mission trip, but also I want to make this really fun for you. And so I have some ideas of there's some really cool hiking and there's some waterfalls and there's some, the beaches and island hopping tours and things like that. I think above all else though, I really want to partner with the local community. And it was nice to get back to the Philippines and experience that, the culture again, to try really understand and make sure that, my eyes back as a missionary 20 years ago was true to what the culture is still today. And so we had a really great time. I was able to do some scouting for these areas. I think we have a pretty good plan. So we're hoping maybe in 2023, if you're interested, let me know. Send me an email, andrew@untitled2hygienist.com. You can DM us in any of our social media accounts and let me know if you're interested in going with us. I will be honest though, it is going to be a little bit of an expensive trip just for flights. Once you get over there, it's very, very inexpensive, but the flight can be over $1,000. And so we'll just see how all that goes here in 2023. So the last thing I want to tell you all is that, look, I still got it. It's been a little bit since I've done a full mouth scaling. And many times, so my everyday life is like, I'll just pop into an office, and if the hygienist needs me to have a quick check in a patient's mouth for something, I can do that. Sometimes if there's like a tough quadrant or a tough area, I'll jump into the chair and I'll help them with that. If I'm teaching them a new skill. But truthfully, it's been almost a year since I've been in one of our offices and actually started in one quadrant and went all the way around and finished. And so I had a patient, and the patient was a little bit squirmy and had probably the worst breath I've ever had for any patient. I ended up doing essentially like a knee to knee situation where I put his head in my lap to keep him from squirming, and I didn't have access to an ultrasonic, so I did hand instrumentation all of the way. The hardest part probably was the lingual of the lower arch, because he has a huge tongue and he kept trying to lick everything that I was doing. But all in all, I felt that my skills still translated, and I feel really accomplished and I feel really good about it. It kind of made me wish a little bit that I was still practicing clinically, but probably in a vet clinic, because this patient was may or may not have been, depending on how legal it is, but it may or may not have been my dog Finn. I will tell you, his breath is markedly better though, since we've may or may not have done this. But it was fun. He's a big lab, and it's quite the adventure. It's been a little bit since, I think it's been almost 2 years since I've done that, or maybe it was a little bit longer than that since we were living in Washington. So, it's fun to get back into it. I really, honestly though, like kind of joking a little bit about the whole dog thing, but I looked into what it would take to become a dental hygienist for a vet clinic, and I went kind of down a rabbit hole. It was really interesting, really fascinating. I don't know if I could really ever do that, but man, I miss clinical, and I think it's going to be in my future here at some point again. So that's it for me. Thank you for listening, and enjoy this episode.
A tale of two hygienists.
Welcome everyone to the interview portion of, actually it's the roundtable this month. I'm really excited to have this roundtable. We're going to be talking about social media, probably-ish. We didn't plan this one, everyone. Just go with it. It's going to be great. But I am joined today by three outstanding professionals, and I'll start with Tameka, Sarah, and then Bethany. If you guys want to just go ahead and introduce yourselves in order and talk about like who you are and what you're a part of.
Awesome. So I am Tameka Lee. I also run a Facebook page, Empower rdh, where the focus is women's empowerment and leadership. And on my day job, I am a dental health partner where I work with a care management organization, so helping with oral health disparities and provider relations. I'm also an educator. I speak, I consult, and I'm taking a back seat these days lately, but that's me.
And you just finished your degree.
Oh, yeah. So I did just finish my master's in public administration and just kind of really feeling my way around and seeing where is this degree going to take me.
All right. I am Sarah Lawrence. I am a dental hygienist and also a myofunctional therapist. And I worked in clinical dental hygiene for the last 13 years, but the last 2 of them I've been out of the clinical role. So I've been on a new venture, which has been super fun. And part of that venture is working closely with Josie Sewell and supporting her through the DEO, our new project. And that's been super fun. And yeah, and as far as social media, I run several groups. Some of them are dental related and some of them aren't. So I work with my local community and any needs that I see on a local or a state level. And I open some groups and moderate those to try to offer some resources for my community, and then also run several dental Facebook groups. So that's a summary of what I do.
My name is Bethany Montoya, and I live in Fort Worth, Texas. I've been practicing clinical hygiene for about 10 years. And I think about a year ago now, I started actually connected with Sarah Lawrence online, and she pointed me in the direction of writing for RDH magazine. So I've been contributing pretty regularly for them for the past year, and I started a social media project called humanrdh. I like to focus on kind of the human aspect of what all connects us as hygienists, just the emotional part, work-life balance, mental health, all those good things. And I'm also a student too. I'm finishing up my bachelor's degree. So yeah, I stay pretty busy. Yeah.
That's awesome. So it's interesting though, because I feel like, all of us are almost running 2 lives, right? We have our day-to-day that we have, and then we have our social media kind of persona. And the way this conversation started was that Sarah and I were on just a random phone call one day, and we started talking about social media and how we both we were all about it. So social media, when we were all probably growing up, depending on how old some of you are, like for me, social media wasn't really anything yet, right? When I was learning about computers and the internet and stuff like that, it wasn't too much of anything. And then it was, hey, this is a way to keep in touch with friends and family. And now it has morphed into this like marketing networking tool that almost all of us use for a very specific reason, in addition to, oh yeah, here's pictures of the kids or the dog or whatever. So as Sarah and I were talking, we were just saying, it's interesting that I was way more active on social media before the podcast got to be a big deal. And as the podcast became bigger and bigger, I started stepping out of those dental groups that I'm still a part of them, but I don't contribute anymore to them because it was almost like I was being put out there too much. It made me feel a little bit insecure and a little bit like I didn't like where it was headed with any of that. And so what I was hoping we could talk today is just like, kind of like, what is our individual like journey have been like through social media, the good, the bad, the ugly, and all of those things.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll start. So my journey with social media started in 2005. I think that's when I started my Facebook account. I was still in college. And like you mentioned, Andrew, it was solely just friends and family. And I go back to some of those memories that pop up, and I'm just like, what was I thinking, when I'm posting some of those things? It's sort of embarrassing, but yeah, it was new. It was fun. And there were like no expectations. It was just us sharing our lives, and it was just so free. And I really, really liked that. But I've always been searching for connection with the outside world. And even when Facebook was around, I was like, when I got pregnant, I was joining all like the forums, like the mom to be forums. It was just always searching for somebody to connect with, to share experiences with. And that was before Facebook groups were really a big deal. And then once my kids were born, it was all about their pictures and the motherhood journey and connecting, like, so my family could see the kids. And then probably back in 2016 or so, it's really when it started morphing into like the not so clear distinction between personal and career. And I feel like that's sort of the identity that I still struggle with however many years later. It's like, where do you draw the line on sharing your personal life and where do you start maintaining that professional image? So I'm sure we have, different views. All of us have different, limitations on what we would do. But yeah, so that's sort of my journey with where I started and where I'm at now. And it's just morphed as relationships and expectations have morphed. And social media has changed. Like you were saying, it used to be family. And then I feel like we went through a period where it was information sharing. And now it's really just relationships. And especially when COVID happened, like that's where I really feel like there was a big distinction. We were all locked in our homes and just looking for some sort of contact with the outside world. And so that was a lifeline for a lot of people, including myself. So yeah, it's always played a big role in my life. And it's always been something that's just been there. And whether it's been a priority at the time or not, it just changes on where I'm at in my own personal life.
Let me ask this to the group, because I think you mentioned something there that was really, I think, interesting. Is what is your perception, all of you, about your role as a professional, so to speak, and then your personal life? Because mine is almost the same thing now. Like I don't have to almost anymore.
For me, it's almost too much work to try to maintain a personal page and a professional career page. So mine are definitely almost morphed into one. I'm sure my family and friends from high school get sick of me posting about dental stuff. But I also post my husband and my kids and what's going on in my life. So I think it's just Tameka Lee, and I happen to have Empower RDH, but it's morphed into one. So it's just too much to try to do two separate things for me, at least.
Yeah, I would say probably the same thing for me. And I'm kind of newer to all of this compared to most of you, but just in the past year that I've been focusing on more of a professional presence, it's easier just to kind of integrate both of those identities into one. But I do feel like since my network has increased so much just within the past year, I'm definitely more selective now on what I choose to post, and especially when it comes to my personal life. Like I used to post a lot more about my kids and where we were, what we were doing, but now, I have all of these people I'm connected with in other countries, and I've never met them before. I probably never will. So that's made me more cautious, I guess, about what I choose to share.
My husband is military, so he's like always post things after the fact. Like if it's something personal, don't post, while we're still there.
Yeah, that's smart.
I'm kind of newer to this in the sense I got into social media, like, I guess 2008, or prior to, I guess MySpace was before that, then Facebook, same thing, family, and then like 2020. And I think 2019, I started to get into groups because I was going through a period of burnout and needing to connect with others out within the field. But 2020, little story, I was transitioning to a new role as a clinical educator, and my anticipated start date was March 23rd, 2020. Well, so that came and went. And, although they assured me that I had my role, anxiety and doubt started to kick in. So that's when I decided to go to grad school and founded Empower RDH within the same week. So my initial focus with Empower RDH was just getting a presence, building my brand. So it's kind of morphed into one. I still have a separate professional page, but I post dental things and personal things on my personal page.
How do you feel that, because I feel like we're all saying almost exactly the same thing, we have this, profession, and for me personally, by the time this airs, like I'll have already gone to the Philippines and came back and no one knew about it. It's one of those things that we're guarded now. How do you feel like your emotional IQ has either blossomed because of like your social media kind of journeys, or have you maybe taken a little bit of a hit emotionally because of it?
Yeah, for me, I lost my job in April of 2020. I shared that openly online, and I was not in a good place for quite a few months, and I took a hit emotionally with what would happen. I felt like I lost my identity in so many ways. I mean, I was a hygienist for so long, and I put everything I had into my career, and I let my worth be determined by what I was doing clinically or, professionally. And when that came to an end, it really messed with me, and sharing that journey with basically everybody on my page, that really was one of the best things I could have done. It was super scary. I had to be very vulnerable. I had to get things out there that I didn't necessarily want to say, but it was so therapeutic. And I think I shared with you, Andrew, on our phone call, like it changed the trajectory that I'm on. And I had so many people that I never met calling me, wanting to connect and just wanting to have a conversation because they were experiencing the same emotions and going through the same things, but they didn't know that anybody else was, experiencing those same things. So it really led to those bad times, really led to where I'm at today, which is having the opportunity to work with who I'm working with currently, because I shared what I was doing. And I was just, posting like, hey, I'm looking for a job. And they reached out and they're like, we don't have a spot for you right now, but we just know we want to work with you. And that's where I'm at. And so I personally have never had anything negative come from social media. Doesn't mean it's not in the future, but everything that I've ever had as a result of social media has been positive. But I definitely feel like what Bethany said, as I'm more selective on what I'm sharing, because you do have people that you don't necessarily like personally know. And so just trying to find that balance of like, what do I post about my kids, and then obviously the last couple of years, so many controversial things have popped up, and just being like totally neutral in most things and just not wanting to get into that with people, especially people that I don't know or I don't know in real life. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely had some lessons the last couple of years of vulnerability and transparency and knowing where to focus your energy with conflict and staying out of it and knowing what you want to put your time and energy into. So it's definitely helped me develop more self-awareness and like more emotional intelligence, I guess.
Tameka, how do you feel about like your kind of emotional ride through this journey of social media?
So I think it's been a little bit more emotional. Like I'm in it right now, as I shared with you. So I just graduated in December, and I'm always what's the next thing. And I kind of had to step back a little bit on social media because I'm such a regimented person. And now this big chunk of my time, I'm not focusing on writing a paper, but my next thing I was working on a CE. And I just had to actually just step back and focus on my health. So that includes me going to my boot camp in the mornings. And I had to say, it's okay, because there are expectations. Once you start posting consistency, there are expectations of you. And I just had to say, Tameka, you have to put yourself first in this time. And so that's really what I'm doing. I'm taking this time to put me first.
That's a hard one. I think that we probably all struggle with, especially those that are trying to stay on that content creation schedule. I'll tell you, I definitely identify with that. I have a hard time. Well, I guess it's not like so like, I don't know. I don't think about it every day, but I just know that between, being a husband and a father, my full-time job, the podcast is almost a full-time job as well. And then I also have to create content and think of questions and who am I going to bring on and when am I going to find the time to do all this recording and now like who's going to be my co-host and what's their schedule look like. And, there's just so much that I don't think that the social media thing really bothered me too much until probably truthfully the last year or so for the same reasons that both of you just stated. Like, I just feel like almost emotionally burnt out on social media, but the rest of my life I'm good. Like I'm not burnt out on the rest of my life. It's just social media. Oh, one more post. Am I going to see that same comment again for the one bajillionth time? I'm going to strangle somebody. When 2 years ago, I'm like, oh, let me help them out. That little newbie needs some help. Let me be helpful. Not anymore. I'm cold and calloused. So Bethany, how have you been with your journey and emotionally?
I mean, it's had some highs and lows. I mean, I'd be lying if I said that I've had only good experiences on social media. I've definitely had some hard lessons that I've learned, especially within like this past year. I actually I had a situation where some things that I was posting actually ended a job relationship for me. So I've learned lessons. And so it's definitely increased my emotional IQ and just being aware of, things that I'm posting. It may, in my mind, it may have maybe like an anonymous approach to it, but anyone that knows me closely is going to know what I'm hinting at. And so, I've had to become a little wiser in that way. But to your point, the expectation to remain relevant on social media is very taxing. And, like they say, when you're in the hospital, every day that you spend in a hospital bed, it takes you like a week to recover from, right? And so I feel like every day or two that you go without creating content and posting it, it's going to take you maybe a week to kind of regain your relevance. I mean, people forget about you pretty quickly. And I think that's, it can be a source of stress for a lot of us, just trying to stay in everybody's foresight. So it can be tough.
So along those lines about being relevant, and this goes back again to the conversation Sarah and I had, when you're talking about staying relevant, one of the reasons why we need to stay relevant isn't so much that we can have this adoration of fans and people love me. It's a lot of it's for sponsorship, right? It's a lot of it so that we can have this additional income stream of whatever. And so we produce content. So yes, we can have followers so that those sponsors will be like, okay, they're relevant. Let's sponsor them for this and that, whatever. So it got to the point for me where it almost felt like if I could create a relationship with Bethany, let's say you are the head, you're the CEO of company B, and I want you to sponsor me. I would rather just create a relationship with you directly, call it good. And it felt like social media people were all fake, and I don't want to say they don't exist, because I've had a lot of my good buddies are from social media. All of us, because of social media, are on here. And Sarah had a different, she's like, no, they're not fake. But to me, they feel fake. It feels like just a number anymore. Maybe I'm not explaining that very well, Sarah, but you jump in and fix me if you want. But I feel like that's what I was saying.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure I quite understand. But for me personally, I do agree with what you're saying. Like when I say it feels fake, I'm not necessarily talking about the sponsorship part of it. I'm just talking about people in general. Everybody says social media is fake because you only post the highlights of your life. Well, I can see that, but I personally am, I guess maybe my perceptions, my reality, I choose to, surround myself with people online that aren't just positive all the time. They're real, they're authentic. And another thing, like a friend and I were talking about, is she does go to Instagram and she goes through Facebook and she does compare herself. She'll tell me, she's like, I just had to step away because I'm comparing myself to these people. And I think that's maybe what sets, like, I don't do that. I know that everybody has, I don't think I do that, but maybe subconsciously, I mean, I'm sure I do, but I don't let that like direct my life, or it doesn't make me feel like I'm any worse than anybody else. It just means that I've chosen to be completely real with people and what I'm experiencing, and not everybody's comfortable with that. And that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong. That's just what they have chosen. So, yeah, as far as like the people, not necessarily the sponsorships, the people I feel that I'm surrounding myself with, they're just, you know, and that are genuine and, do share the positive and the negative. So, yeah.
Where do the both of you feel about that? Because I really still feel that people are just not authentic on there. There's the followers thing. I don't believe in the followers thing. If you have 5,000 followers, like that doesn't mean they're actually really watching everything you do and buying into your message or anything like that. I'm very pessimistic about this. I'm so sorry.
So are you talking about like, maybe our perceptions
everything.
are different
I don't know
because
everything.
you're a business. Like I'm not, like I don't have a sponsorship deal, you know? And
Well-
that is honestly, like that is something that I have several large groups, and I've had people come to me for sponsorships, and I just tell them like, I'm not comfortable with that right now because I feel like it changes the message for me, like personally. Like I just want to be myself. I don't want there to be any expectations associated with what I'm doing. I just want to come from a place of authenticity. I want to say what I want to say. I want to have creative ability to do my own thing. And I don't want anybody to say that they either approve of it or aren't, you know, okay with it. But I don't have, it's not a business for me.
That's the thing though. So in my little social media world, you are the diamond in the rough that is authentic and truthfully you, which is why I think I've always respected you, right? Like out of all these years when we kind of lost touch for a minute, it's why I came back to you and you were on my mind for a little bit because you are that person. I'm like, okay, I like her. She's the real deal. But again, I just feel like you go into these groups and I know that they would not say that if we were all sitting in the same room. They would not comment that way. They would not behave that way. They would not follow or click a post this way. Like that's not a real life situation. It all feels so ridiculously fake to me. And so part of it is the sponsorship thing too. Is like when I'm looking at a Tell 2 just doesn't really do like social media sponsorship and stuff like that in the way like the podcast has sponsorship. But it just feels like let's say that I created a video and I'm trying to get 100,000 views. I'm like, those aren't views. You have to watch it for 3 seconds and it's a view, but you didn't listen to the message. But then you're going around selling that and being like, oh, I got all these hundreds of thousands of views. It's like, none of that's real.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. I'm really ranting on this whole reality thing. And it's so bad, but this is the emotional part of like where I'm coming from with all of this is because it hurts so bad for people not to be authentic and real to me.
Yeah, I would just say, I think I know what you're saying with it. It's kind of like a game, right? Like social media is so largely based on the rule of reciprocity. Like for you to be able to get the audience that the people that you're hoping to reach, you have to invest so much of your own personal time liking everybody else's stuff and commenting on their stuff. That's really how you're going to gain your own success, because those people, the more that you do that, they're going to want to help you out too. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. And so after a while, I think that's part of why it can feel so exhausting being so heavily involved on social media, is all the upkeep that it requires for you to stay visible.
I think it does require a lot of upkeep, but you really, like Sarah, you sharing your story, I think ultimately that's what people, when they, not just the clicks, but ultimately when you have followers or people listening to your message, you sharing your true self. And the analytics, it can be a game. Okay, well, who's seeing this? What avatar and this and that? But and that's definitely where I'm in that overwhelmed space. But I think if you continue to be genuine and share your story, the numbers will come.
And I think one thing that people don't realize, or I didn't realize it until I stepped away a couple months ago, like Andrew was saying, social media is like a creative thing. Like it requires so much creativity, like, because you're just connecting with your audience with writing and emotions and pictures. Like that's your medium. That's all you have. So anytime you make a post, you got to put a lot of time into that and energy and to make sure that it's exactly what you want it to say. And sometimes I just don't have that creative like desire. Sometimes I'm just like burnt out and I'm just like, I don't want to create. I don't want to write. I don't want to create. I just want to consume what everybody else is doing. I don't want to put anything out. And I think that's something that I forgot once I started working more, because I was working very part-time prior. And once I had more hours that I was putting into my job, I just didn't have the emotional, like I didn't have the mental space, the time that I didn't have the desire to like sit through and like type a draft up and edit it 15 times before I hit publish, because that's what I would do. I would just make sure it was like perfect, you know? And now I go back and I look at like my edit history of my posts and I'm like, dang, even now I like go back and change words and I'm just never really happy with it, because it's like an art, you know, writing. And Bethany knows that. She's a great writer, and she knows that it takes a lot of time and energy to get that creativity out there. And then you associate an expectation with it. Like, who do people think you are? You know, I'm somebody completely different than who Bethany thinks I am, who Andrew thinks I am, and who I actually think I am.
We're learning a lot about you on this episode, though, I tell you what. Perfectionist is what we're learning.
Right, totally. And so like trying to, like knowing that somebody's going to read that and they'll think differently of me potentially. You know, I had to let that go through the last couple of years. Obviously, I haven't lost control like completely. I still have perfectionism tendencies, but for the most part, you know, I've just learned to put what I want to put out there, and you don't like it, you just unfriend me. It's fine. I used to be a little obsessed about how many people had unfriended me, and that ended a couple years ago because it was just emotionally too taxing for me to really care. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely, as I'm processing this and saying these things, I think back to like where I was and where I am now, and it's definitely been a lot of growth. And it's and so going back to that original comment when I said nothing negative has come from social media, actually that's not true. I had a bad encounter in 2017. I just forgot about it. But yeah, I guess it's because I think nothing bad came from it because I learned so much. And so at the time it felt horrible. It felt really bad. But I've almost forgotten about it because I'm over it. You know, I learned from it, and that person that did this to me is no longer my friend online, or, you know, I've forgiven them. But yeah, it definitely it took a toll, but yeah, more time has just went by and I've learned from it. So I turned my negative into a positive.
See, and that's what we all need to do so we can get stop thinking about it, all the problems of the past. You said something though that I want to maybe ask Bethany a question about. So when we're talking about expectations and we're like what someone thinks of us or what someone thinks of our writing, we'll say, do you feel like there's anything wrong in playing into what is expected, playing into, even if it's not necessarily you? And where for you specifically, what I would say is something like a title of an article that you wrote, the keywords that you're thinking about, the way that you put those keywords together to get more people to click or read if it's in print. Is there anything inherently wrong with that, or is this just part of, you know, being out there?
I mean, I guess I don't see anything wrong with it. You know, I definitely have done that before with writing, like picking the title to a piece is huge because people are going to decide right then and there if that's something that piques their interest or not. And so I've learned to be creative when it comes to putting together words like that. Or sometimes, you know, the magazine will come back to me and say, this was really good, but what if we kind of change it a little bit and put some words here? And I'm like, yeah, that actually works great. But, you know, it kind of, what you're saying kind of makes me think of where I see social media going right now, where when I'm posting and putting together content, I like to put a big focus on the substance behind it. Like I'm not somebody who usually will just post like a picture of me, like with a peace sign or whatever. Like I like to have like a positive message or something to really connect with people. But lately, that's not really what the general audience wants. They want like the reels, like the quick video of you doing a little dance in your operatory or, the cute stuff. And I like watching that stuff too. But I do feel like it kind of can put you in this dilemma where you're trying to appeal to the masses, but you're also trying to stay true to you and do what's authentic to you. So that can be really tough.
And just speaking from experience on that, it doesn't always. So let's say that you do go down the I'm going to do the newest dance or whatever and put it out there. It doesn't really translate into another follower that's going to watch your content for learning or for personal growth or any of these other things. And that's kind of like the dangerous kind of slippery slope of feeding into the social media machine, whatever it is, that gets you more views, but not really doesn't translate into more actionable content. Let me ask you this. In all of your guys' experience, is there a safer social media platform than the other ones? And then also kind of along those lines, is there one that's more effective than the other ones?
I think depending on your avatar, your audience, for me, LinkedIn, actually, I've gotten a lot of like DMs from and opportunities through LinkedIn over Facebook or Instagram, something that was leaded to actual substance rather than maybe a like here or so.
I should invest more time and effort into my LinkedIn page because it's there and I've got like a fair number of connections, but I've really never explored it the way that I should. And I hear people say all the time, like, I love LinkedIn. Like, I love the connections that I have. I love the opportunities that have come from it. So you're inspiring me to put some more work into it.
Got a few paid opportunities from LinkedIn. So
that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like most of my connections and I don't know if you'd call it success. The most success that I've seen has been on my Instagram page. I think it's been a good way for me to post the images because, that is mainly what Instagram is. It's images. And I like that about that platform. So I can post an engaging image and then I can attach whatever message or caption that I want to attach to. Facebook, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with. Like, I definitely have the most connections on Facebook, but it can feel kind of like a free-for-all a lot of times. Like, there's so many different types of content that people can share, whether it's just like, I don't know, just words itself or a video or sharing somebody else's post or being tagged and that showing up on your feed. Like, it can feel a little overwhelming. So I like Facebook in that it's allowed me to connect with so many people, but I don't really utilize Facebook as much for like my professional content.
Yeah, Facebook is my favorite, like by far. So LinkedIn to me is kind of stuffy. I don't really have a lot to post on there because I feel like the expectation that it has to be professional enough to be relevant, I struggle with that because I don't always want to talk about like professional stuff. So I just want to talk about like life, and sometimes that's not what I guess people are posting over there. But yeah, I mean, in the short time that I did have my LinkedIn profile and I was doing like professional stuff, it was definitely like more engaging. Instagram, I get very bored on Instagram. I like to read more than I like to see pictures. So I get like sidetracked and then I don't ever read anything what anybody posts below the picture because I'm like off to the next picture. So that's why I like Facebook. And then I really like TikTok. That has been so fun. I love TikTok, and but I know that like it's my number one video I have over there. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. My highest viewed video, going back to like what Andrew was saying, like what we see is not necessarily the truth. So we have I live in this small town in Kansas, and we have the carnival that comes to our town every year. And like I was recording this video, I was on a walk at night and I was recording this video, and the operator of the machine turned the lights off. Like it was just part of like what the ride was, right? So I'm recording, and then I posted TikTok like, electricity went out in the middle of the ride, and like people were going crazy. They were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. Like that would be so scary. And it's got like 886,000 views, right? Wow. And people like I felt bad because I was like lying, I guess, but it was just for entertainment, you know? It was just like for fun, and they took it as like that, like the lights actually went out. So I guess it goes back to like what you were saying, and like what you see is not necessarily true. But then I do have a flossing video on there. My mom flossing, using some floss to cut a watermelon. And that got like 200 and almost 300,000 views. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, I like TikTok. It's just entertainment. I don't take the content seriously, like as educational necessarily, because obviously that was just a fun video I posted. But yeah, Facebook for sure.
Yeah. I feel like for us, Facebook's been, it was the OG platform. It was the one that, because we were going into all the groups before. Like I said, I was really active in all these groups before. And I feel like we had a lot of really good friends and all that kind of stuff. And so they started listening to the podcast because of it. And then you can just kind of see like the follows and stuff continue to go just organically. We did start doing Instagram, I think a few years ago. And I'm sure we've gotten some audience members from there, but we didn't see like a big, like huge jump in downloads because of it. So I feel like Facebook is still kind of like my go-to, but for personal, like professional Andrew, it's LinkedIn. I don't post nearly enough for the same reasons all you said. As we're finishing up, let me ask this kind of like this last question for all of you to answer. There's going to be new grads who are already on social media. So let's not pretend like this is going to be like brand new information for them. But how do you feel like if a new grad or someone that's maybe in the middle of their career that wants to get into speaking, writing, whatever else we all do, and being a bigger part of the profession, what do they need to kind of keep in mind as far as social media goes? What would be your advice for social media to keep them safe, but also to help them explore their opportunities?
I guess first off, finding out their avatar. What are their audience? That would be number one. And then also consistency. Know what you want to speak about and put out consistent content. I like watching TikTok videos, but I'm not a TikToker for sure. So if that is where they want to go, you can definitely get a lot of followers there. But first off, know your audience and your content consistency.
I would say the first thing I would do is I would just sit back and observe. I would just watch and collect information on the people find the people that you respect and trust. See how they're operating and connect with them. Like, don't be afraid. Don't be intimidated. That would be another thing. Don't be intimidated by anybody, because we're all human. We've all been there. But I would just sit back and watch. We all have values, right? We all have things that we value, and find those people in your life on social media that you think that you could connect with and that you can trust. And I would just look, for a mentor, somebody that has a little bit more experience, not necessarily a ton, but just a little bit more experience than what you have, and just use them as a filter. Like, ask for their opinion before you do anything major. But just the important thing for me is just be yourself, be kind. Like, don't engage in things that aren't going to turn out to be like these little conversations that get posted all the time. Just don't fall for it. Just stay out of it and don't engage, and just keep it positive and stay kind, and find somebody you trust and use them to help guide you in the right direction.
I guess I would just say it's good to sit down and really get clear on what it is that you're wanting to promote and communicate with everybody else. If you don't really know that, and sometimes you can kind of figure that out along the way, I suppose. But if you're just kind of randomly posting things, it gets confusing for you. It gets confusing for the people you're connected with. And it can be stressful because you'll get messages from these different companies and things that want to work with you to promote their product. And it sounds kind of cool at the time because maybe you can earn a few dollars that way. But is it really true to what you're trying to do with your social media work? Or, is it authentic to you? Otherwise, you can get pulled into all of these connections and relationships and posting content that you don't really care about. And then it becomes more of a job or a chore than just an enjoyable thing that it should be.
For sure. So my assumption / experience tells me that there's going to be several individuals listening to this episode who connected with one of you. And they're probably going to want to reach out. So if someone wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
They can email me at rdh.empower@gmail.com. All social media handles at empowerrdh and tamekaslee.com.
And my contact information is sarahlawrencerdh@gmail. And my Instagram is Sarah_dental-hygienist. And yeah, so just email me or Facebook me.
And I can be reached through email at humanrdh@outlook.com. And my social media handle on Instagram and Facebook is humanrdh.
Fantastic. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you,
Thank
Andrew.
you. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.